Hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast, coming to you for part one on a beautiful early autumn evening here in New York on day 10 of the US Open, the first day of quarterfinal action. And let's be honest, it's been a little bit flat, or certainly as flat as a day can be when Carlos Alcaraz is on the schedule. We've seen two straight sets, fairly uncompetitive matches, and just now received the news that the first of tonight's matches between Aryna Sabalenka and Marketa Vondrousova, probably our most anticipated match of the day, is cancelled because Marketa Vondrousova has had to withdraw with a knee injury, which is obviously absolutely devastating for her. So it's another one of those days where you kind of say, thank goodness for Carlos Alcaraz and his ability to create vibe from the vibeless.
Yes, and that includes the fact that he was playing in a pretty uncompetitive match, and that's no slight on Yuri Lehechka, who I actually thought put up a good account of himself. But the nature of Alcaraz is that people are able to come and still feel like they've had a show. And they've had something truly memorable. At least that's how I see it. I don't think I've ever seen him more locked in. I think he's getting things just the right side of the line, because there was a moment. I mean, look, there are two things to pick out. One is, I think in the second game of the match, he hit a shot where he ran around a backhand to hit a forehand inside in over the high part of the net. The most laconic, sort of relaxed looking stroke imaginable, but the ball just set off like a bullet into the corner, and he enjoyed that so much. And yet I felt that it was greeted with ultra focus. Later on in the match, when he was 2-0 up and Lehechka was keeping the scores close, there were a couple of moments that frankly wouldn't have looked out of place in an exhibition match, where he just sort of he hit an extravagant inside-out forehand drop shot, which Lehechka tracked down, put a ball onto Alcaraz's baseline. He just held his ground, and he just sort of half-volleyed it with a little poke down the line, which wasn't even a proper stroke. It was toying with Lehechka in the nicest possible way. And I thought, actually, this is the most vulnerable he's looked. And I said to Matt at the time, this is where he needs to be careful, because he's having almost too good a time here. And the score is close. And he was just a little bit down on the scoreline. And then suddenly, Matt, he locked in again.
Yeah, David said he needs to lock in, and he didn't lose another point. It's like the David Law pep talks are now having an influence through a television screen. It is unbelievable, David's power at this tournament. But it was extraordinary. The point he got to break serve, get the decisive break in that third set. Like, honestly, Lehechka wins that point, I think, against everyone else in the draw. But Alcaraz's ability to retrieve balls and put them back in awkward spots, and then once he's made a couple of spectacular retrievals in the rally, you get the sense that, like, he's desperate to win the point. He wants to finish it there and then, because he's done a highlight reel shot. Let's make this a highlight reel point. And he got the decisive break by scampering all over the court, and then he served it out to Love, as he did, kind of repeatedly today. He didn't face a single break point. That was another big theme. Really good Alcaraz serving. I do want to linger a little bit on that shot that David described in the second game of the match, because it was right in front of the press seats where I was at the start here, and it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. He had no time and no space to be able to hit this shot. The ball was coming into his body. He had to get his body out of the way. The ball almost hit him, and he had this little sort of dancing feet to scamper back behind the ball, and then the softness of his feet was just juxtaposed with the strike of the ball. It just went like an arrow down the line. I felt like David Foster Wallace when he was watching Roger Federer here against Andre Agassi, and he decided to write, the essay about Roger Federer as a religious experience, having seen 1 point. I feel like I got all the things that David Foster Wallace was feeling. It was like, how is that humanly possible? It was outrageous, and look, we've been hyping up Alcaraz's form all tournament. I think this was the best performance so far because Lehečka played well. I really think Lehečka brought it today, and he didn't have a chance. Alcaraz was ridiculous.
We've quite often talked or worried on this podcast and in chats between ourselves off air about the tension between the kind of tennis player that Alcaraz wants to be, sort of ultimately an entertainer ahead of anything else. The tension between that and the need to lock in and win tennis matches efficiently most of the time. And we've worried that those two things are too much in opposition for him. And we've worried about him having to kind of pick a lane, to choose one thing at the expense of the other. Are we seeing over the course of this tournament perhaps evidence that those two things don't have to be in opposition? Because today wasn't a competitive match. There was no jeopardy at any stage in that match, and yet it was really fun. And he had fun. Yeah,
I feel like he's been getting there all year long. The finals in succession that he's been reaching, he hasn't had that drop off. I do feel, look, he was playing Jannik Sinner of all people in the final of Wimbledon, who was playing fantastically and was too good for him that day. I think that was a bit of a blip there, a bit of a sort of moment of can't bring it again, you know. But also, look what he's up against today, though. And this tournament, as you say, I do feel like feels a bit like the culmination of all that build-up. And the scheduling being sensible, the break he's given himself after Wimbledon, the kind of look in his eye that I've sensed all through this tournament, that he is a man desperate to prove a point, that he can beat Jannik Sinner on a hard court, that he can win the US Open when everybody's saying that's Sinner's territory because Sinner's gone and won on his territory at Wimbledon. That's what I'm getting from it. And look, that may not be something that we see every week from now on until whenever. I mean, it may still go in fluctuations. He may need a loss in order to lock in the next time. I don't know. Or the maturity may be achieved by where we are now, and this may be the thing he's able to establish going forwards. But right here, right now, I've never seen him look better as a sort of rounded tennis player, entertainer and professional. I think he's got that balance just perfectly at the moment.
The more I watch of this tournament this year and think about last year, the more I think, like, of course last year's titles were won by players that didn't play the Olympics. Like, I know Canada and Cincinnati extended in length this year, which hasn't helped. But this year, the schedule has felt untenable, like ridiculous. Like, of course, Carlos Alcaraz had to take that break and not play Canada. Like, it is crazy that Iga Świątek has played it all. Like the fact that there was a whole Olympics in there last year
on a different surface.
What were we doing? Like, of course Carlos Alcaraz lost to Bertik van der Zandschulp in the second round.
And look at the state he was in Cincinnati when he was smashing his racket and losing his mind.
I think, like, we did know that at the time. Like, we were talking about the Olympics a lot. I'm always wanted to talk about the Olympics, but looking back now, like, what were we doing? What was tennis asking everybody to do?
But what do you mean, what were we doing? Because, like, we want the Olympics. We want tennis in the Olympics. Like,
but why would we be surprised? Is the point?
That's what I mean.
There was a letdown.
So why were we like?
Why was I ever thinking that players that had success in the Olympics on clay a few weeks before, and all the emotions of the Olympics and the experience of the Olympics, which is so completely different and wonderful, but I'm sure really draining and takes some processing as well. Like, why were we ever expecting players that had that experience
that makes
to
sense.
Have any kind of success
when
here
Sinner
in the US
didn't play
Open?
it?
Sinner and Sabalenka didn't play the Olympics.
Yeah.
I know Pegula did.
Yeah.
Did Taylor Fritz play the Olympics? Have I erased
Yes,
Taylor
he
Fritz
did.
from my...
Didn't he get a doubles medal?
Yes.
I mean, he plays everything.
Yeah.
That's who he is, isn't it?
Yeah, like it. I still think the nature of the Bertik van der Zandschulp result was shocking. Like, I don't think we should totally rewrite that.
But back-to-back
it's
days,
understandable.
Him and Popper in back-to-back days beating Djokovic and Alcaraz.
It's definitely understandable, and I do think we thought the Olympics was a factor at the time, but I think it goes to show how good Alcaraz has been and how good Djokovic has been, that we just do kind of assume that they can do these ridiculous feats, and last year was kind of a step too far for sure.
He didn't face a break point today, Carlos Alcaraz. His serve has been broken once all tournament. That's in 5 matches. And that was in the game where he had jarred his knee and he'd called for the trainer.
Good sign, isn't it?
It's not bad. It's not bad at all. And, see everything we've previously said about Carlos Alcaraz when he's serving well. It enables him to feel loose in the rest of his game, doesn't it? And that's when he plays his best tennis. He gave a fascinating answer in press just now about body language.
Oh, one of the best answers I've ever heard him give.
Yeah, and obviously as we're speaking right now, as he was speaking in press, he doesn't know who he's going to be playing in the next round, but obviously he's thinking more about potentially playing Novak Djokovic in the next round than he is about potentially playing Taylor Fritz in the next round. And I don't know, David. He didn't specifically mention Djokovic and what happened in Australia when he got totally thrown off by Djokovic's injury timeout, and how he came back onto court firing, and how clearly discombobulated Alcaraz was by that whole situation. I don't know. I felt like Djokovic had his fingerprints all over that answer from Alcaraz.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all of that, all of the experiences had particularly with Djokovic, I think have stayed with him and are in. I think he's been ambushed a few times by Djokovic's, I don't want to say mind games, but I think presence and kind of ability to just change the mood of a match, and Alcaraz has not known what to do sometimes, and he's not known when the attack's coming at him, and it's come out of the blue and everything's going fine, and then suddenly, oh my word, why is he playing like this now? I thought he was hurt a minute ago. It's all this sort of stuff. We've seen it in Cincinnati, we saw it at the Olympics, we've seen it now in Australia. But also I think it's also gave this amazing insight into how there are 2 battles going on out on a court. There's a physical and a tennis battle, and then there's the body language you give to your opponent, the way you carry yourself. And I do think when we've watched him today, I mean, he looks absolutely as healthy and as strong and as ready and as focused as he could ever look. He's got the shaved head, he's got the pink vest, he looks fit as a butcher's dog. He looks so healthy and ready to go. And he's carrying himself with a strut, but it's not a sort of I'm distracted and looking everywhere strut. It's a sort of I'm feeling it and you're going to get it strut. And I tell you, I think it's impacting opponents, and I think even if it isn't, he feels like it is, so he feels even better.
What was interesting about the answer Alcaraz gave, I thought, was that he said it doesn't matter if you feel exhausted, if you feel really tired, if you feel like you can't keep it going, you have to show the opponent you feel fresh. You have to show him that it's going to be really, really tough. I mean, thinking back to Australia, the fact that Djokovic wasn't showing him that he felt fresh and that he felt like he could keep it going was the thing that distracted him. Because Djokovic wasn't giving off the impression of between the points like he was absolutely fine. It was in the points where Djokovic was absolutely fine, and then outside of them he looked injured because he was injured.
That's what freaked him out.
And that's what freaked him out. So it isn't as though Alcaraz has taken that as a lesson and being like, I've got to do exactly what Novak Djokovic does, but I think he has realised the importance that his body language can have on an opponent, and the effect that he wants to give is that he's always ready. I don't think it would work for Alcaraz to be exaggerating little niggles that he's feeling and trying to get in an opponent's heads that way. He wants to give off the the aura of energy and joy, and that's when he's going to play his best stuff. So I think he's, it's less sort of cunning, I think.
Do you think that's what Djokovic does? Exaggerates and tries to get in his opponent's head?
Yes, I think that's exactly what he does. Yeah, and I think he's the master at it. I don't see it. I don't really have a big problem with it. I think a lot of people do. A lot of people think, oh, here he goes again, Novak Djokovic, making something out to be a big deal when it isn't. I think there's a part of him that it feels like a big deal to him.
See, that's where I stand on. I've always thought, I think he panics, and then his way of coping is to tell everybody in the stadium what he's going through and how awful.
He absolutely knows. I don't think he creates things out of nothing. I don't think he totally makes things up.
There's something there.
But he uses things that he feels, for sure. And I agree with your read on it, David, that I do think he panics, and I do think he wants to let everybody know, but I also think he is 100% aware of it's won him, or it's helped win him Grand Slam titles, and it's within the rules.
He did pull out of that tournament the next round with the injury, so it was obviously serious.
I'm not saying it wasn't, but I think he knew that Alcaraz was spooked out by the fact that he was still capable of playing really, really well.
Some players put the poker face on because they don't want you to know, even if it is really serious.
Do you remember Alcaraz did that impersonation, that jokey impersonation of Djokovic limping? And to your point, what you're saying about sort of Alcaraz has to do the body language thing his own way, that didn't really suit him, did it? That sarcasm. No. It was such an out-of-character moment, and it really revealed how gone he was mentally. But I do the answer he gave today about body language that we've just been discussing, coupled with the answer in the press conference a couple of days ago that we also discussed on the podcast about proving that he's not, about setting the record straight, that he's not inconsistent. I do think this underlines the point that he's got a point to prove here. I'm not inconsistent. I'm not this easily distracted puppy dog that everybody thinks I am. I'm a serious tennis player, and I'm here for this title.
I think you're right. I think that's bang on. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how body language, it's not all the same, and there are different ways that you can carry yourselves, and there are different ways you kind of need to, depending on who you are.
And I know, we're obviously going to talk about Taylor Fritz versus Novak Djokovic in part 2. When people are listening to this, they will know the result. I'm not going to go into it too much, but what I will say is that, to me, the biggest remaining intrigue left in the men's draw before a potential Sinner-Alcaraz final, which we've all been talking about the entire time, it feels like we're all on that path, is a fresh Novak Djokovic against Carlos Alcaraz in the semis. I think because he's never lost to him on a hard court. And he's beaten him this year at a slam. And
I think Alcaraz wants it. I think he wants Djokovic.
I think so.
I think he wants the revenge.
Well, I think it goes all with what you've just been saying about, what I've been saying about him wanting to prove Sinner wasn't something that's going to be repeated, and wanting to prove that he's not flaky and he doesn't lose his concentration. That's the competitor in him, isn't it?
We should probably curtail this element of the discussion until we should put a pin in it until
I'm enjoying it anyway.
Part 2. Let's talk about Jessica Pegula through to the semi-finals. We know she'll face Aryna Sabalenka there because of Vondrousova's withdrawal due to a knee injury that we'll talk about as well. Pegula beating Barbora Krejcikova 6-3, 6-3. It's funny that this time last year when she reached the semi-finals, Pegula, it was so huge because it was her finally getting over the hurdle, the ceiling that she'd been butting up against, and now it's like, oh, you've made the semi-finals, well done.
Yeah.
And
next.
Yeah, and I think also the nature of the quarterfinal, last year was night session, Iga Swiatek, it felt like a massive deal. Her whole tournament has been pretty under the radar of Jessica Pegula. She's not had like a really good match yet. She's not had a sort of, I don't really like the expression, but like popcorn match on the schedule. She's played players that you would expect her to beat, so it's all been a bit under the radar. And this one was first up on Ash. It was actually a really good crowd. Ash Stadium was pretty much full for this once it got going, which was great to see. And actually, just exactly what a quarterfinal deserves. And she kept it that way. She kept it low key. She's so good at that, Pegula, just sort of quietly going about and doing her thing. And I think the real sort of talking point of this was how much of this was about Pegula playing well versus how much was about Krejcikova not having much left. And I do think both things are true. Pegula to start with was, I thought, sublime, like hitting the ball so sweetly, getting Krejcikova moving out to her forehand side, and she looked pretty slow getting out there, and she just kept doing it. And fast starts have been a real theme of Pegula's tournament, and slow starts have been a theme of Krejcikova's, and that's exactly where we were in this match. And Krejcikova did get the break back in the first set, but then her serve kind of really started to let her down, Krejcikova. She seemed bothered by the sun. She had a few double faults. She was really going for it on second serve, but Pegula hit a lovely deep return and managed to get the crucial break, and then served it out. And then in the second set, I think it was more about the Krejcikova not having the energy, the fire to get her teeth into the match in a way that she has done in a lot of matches this tournament. She just didn't quite have it, and the energy was quite low in the stadium, and that suited Pegula. I think she went up a double break. She did give one of the breaks back with a really poor service game, Pegula, but if that was the danger zone, Krejcikova getting one of the breaks back, she just didn't allow it to become a big problem, and she won it pretty comfortably. It was a little bit of a dud of a match.
It's funny how that works, isn't it? That energy in the stadium thing. I mean, we were in the stadium when she's 8 match points down against Taylor Townsend, and she said herself, I know everybody wanted her to win, but it still was an atmosphere. It's still something I was able to tap into to get this performance out of myself. And yet when you're on Arthur Ashe Stadium, and it was full, I mean, it was absolutely packed. Well, certainly 20,000 in, something like that, but it was quiet and people weren't that into it. And I think Jessica Pegula was pretty self-conscious, really. When she won the match, she was sort of asking for people to kind of give her a bit more. And it was an early day, and it's a cavernous stadium and so forth. She'll have her moment, though, against Aryna Sabalenka, and she'll need it. She'll need that crowd.
It was funny in the press conference. She did a David Law. She said, I've had a good draw.
I know.
Jasmine Paolini, Maya Sharif, Anna Blinkova, Victoria Azarenka and Anne Lee. She did exclude Barbora Krejcikova. She was very keen to exclude Barbora Krejcikova, 2-time Grand Slam champion, from that. I mean, obviously Azarenka is too, but
rankings-wise, is what she's pointing
absolutely.
to, isn't it?
It was a funny moment in the press conference, and she will face Aryna Sabalenka now in the semi-finals on Thursday night. We got the just gutting news about Marketa Vondrousova an hour or so ago. She said, I'm sorry to announce that I have to withdraw from my quarter-final match this evening due to a knee injury. I tried my best to take to the court today, but during the warm-up I felt again my knee. After consultation with the tournament doctor, decided not to risk aggravating the injury. I appreciate all the support this tournament and apologise to the fans who are looking forward to the match. I had an amazing time here in New York and can't wait to be back next year. And we've subsequently seen the ESPN had the footage of her from the practice court pulling up with the knee, and it's extremely evident that there was just no way she could have played that match tonight. And I'm absolutely gutted. That was my match of the tournament so far, her victory over Elena Rybakina the other night, and I was looking forward to something similar tonight in terms of how the match might have looked. And I had centered my day around it. I allowed myself to accidentally fall asleep on the sofa earlier because I thought Matt and David have got the day session covered, and I can bring it with full pep for Sabalenka Vondrousova, and now here we are.
Your Djokovic Fritz takes better be good.
Yeah, so much pressure on those.
I tell you, there was a little bit of footage of Aryna Sabalenka being told, and the competitor that she is, she wouldn't like this. She wants the stage, she wants the battle, and I think, look, I mean, Vondrousova was a real threat to her chances of actually going any further in this tournament, but that's what she's in it for, and I think she'd have loved the challenge. It's a terrible shame.
Yeah, it's such a shame. Vondrousova, when she's fit, is just such a joy to have on the tour because of the way she plays, and really thought she was fit here and was just so excited to see that game come up against Sabalenka. And I feel for the ticket holders as well. There was a brief moment when we thought that maybe they would move the Venus Williams, Taylor Fernandez versus Siniakova Townsend doubles over to that first on the night session slot on Ash, because they hadn't started yet. Jasmine Paolini and Sara Errani were looking like maybe they were going to go 3 sets, and it just a little moment where it seemed like they might have an obvious way to give the crowd something, but actually Errani and Paolini wrapped it up in straight sets, and I'm sure everyone involved in the Venus doubles were ready to go on court. And there's also a whole Armstrong crowd of ticket holders, and I know a lot of people on the grounds had gone into Armstrong, make sure they had their seat. That would have been a tough scene for them to move it. So
I'm glad they didn't move it.
Yeah, I think I am.
I would have understood.
I'm a bit shocked. I thought they might,
I
but
thought
I think
they
the
would
lateness
as well.
of it kind of made it tricky. But actually, I'm looking at my screen right now, and 55 minutes, there it is, game set match, Siniakova Townsend, 6-1, 6-2.
Wow.
So, I think they're just, they're such a classy team, aren't they, Siniakova and Townsend? Maybe one match too far for Venus
back-to-back days as well.
Back-to-back days. They've been, what a great story they've been, but yeah, just honestly, a tough scene of a day.
Yeah. So pressure on me for my Fritz Djokovic takes, pressure on Djokovic and Fritz.
Absolutely, yeah.
In that order.
Provide some competitive tennis.
Yeah, even if it's shit, you better have takes.
They've moved it forward to start not before 8 p.m. Should we go and watch it?
Let's do it.
That's it for part 1. Join us in part 2. But before that, we just want to take a moment to throw forward to next year. For anyone thinking of taking a big tennis trip in 2026, there is no one better to organise that tennis trip of a lifetime for you than, of course, the one and only Steve Fergal's International Tennis Tours, who have been a long-time partner and supporter of this show. They can provide packages at all of the world's biggest and most fun tennis events, including the Miami Open in April. It is a super fun and vibrant event in Miami. I can speak from experience. I went there in 2023 to the Hard Rock Stadium, of course, as part 2 of the Sunshine Double, with a quick trip to Las Vegas in between, and it was incredibly fun. It's such a vibrant event, and if you want to book a trip there to Miami in 2026 with Steve Fergal's, they can provide premium hotel accommodations, transportation to and from the venue, premium hospitality at the 72 Club, baseline seats to watch the tennis up close, plus an exclusive guest credential. Basically, everything you need for the perfect Miami experience. If that sounds good and you want to check out what Steve Fergal's have to offer, just head to toursfortennis.com/podcast to find out more and book your trip. Welcome back to part 2 of the Tennis Podcast, where it is now shortly before midnight. We're all back at Tennis Podcast Towers, and we have just watched 38-year-old Novak Djokovic beat 27-year-old Taylor Fritz 4 sets, 6-3, 7-5, 3-6, 6-4 to set up a US Open semi-final meeting with Carlos Alcaraz, a 9th career meeting, a first at the US Open. Matt, how is Djokovic doing this at 38 years old?
It is pretty mind-boggling. He's now the oldest player in the Open era to reach the semi-finals at all 4 slams in a season. It's an extraordinary feat, and I think inevitably, because we talk so much about Alcaraz and Sinner, we've spent quite a lot of the year talking about Djokovic's shortcomings relative to them. But I think this Grand Slam season that he's putting together, with time, I think we will come to look at it as maybe an even better achievement than it's felt like in the moment, perhaps, because his consistency has been extraordinary. His level above the rest of the field, apart from Alcaraz and Sinner, is undeniable. And I think the match tonight against Taylor Fritz kind of totally proves that. If we were to have a conversation about who's the most likely guy other than Alcaraz and Sinner to win a major, Taylor Fritz would be in that conversation, I think. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think last year's finalist here, particularly at the US Open, I don't think Fritz has quite been as good this year as he was last year, but, he's still one of the best players in the world. And yet there wasn't really a moment tonight where tennis-wise I thought Fritz was going to win. It was only a question of whether he could outlast him, somehow make it really, really physical, take advantage of his youth compared to Djokovic. Those, to me, were his avenues to actually winning it. When it comes down to tennis, Djokovic is still like the master and better than someone like Taylor Fritz. Tactically, better with his serve. And then tonight, I think the big one was better on the big points. He played the break points so much better than Taylor Fritz in this match. And that ultimately felt like the difference in what was, pretty close match in terms of, most of the sets were pretty in the balance.
It's such a good point, actually, about how we'll come to view this Grand Slam season in time. It's like, I think that one of the most incredible achievements of Serena Williams' career is the 4 Grand Slam finals she reached after maternity leave and after birth and after pregnancy. But because she was on this self-declared quest for 24, anything other than winning that 24th Grand Slam wasn't it. It was nothing. It was that or nothing. And it feels like we're viewing Djokovic's current quest through the same lens. And I don't think that's wrong. Like, Djokovic isn't making any secret of the fact he's on a quest for 25. He's still out here because he thinks he might possibly be able to win a Grand Slam title still. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about what a frigging amazing achievement it is that he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah. I said after the previous match to him, if you pulled this off, would it be your greatest achievement ever? And he said, could be. But then he quickly moved on because he just didn't want to get into it. And I understand why. But I also think it would be, because if he would have most likely beat Alcaraz and then beat Sinner, because that's the likely scenario if he's going to win this thing at the age of 38. I mean, really? It's hard to even countenance the idea. So it does feel a bit harsh to be judging him through that lens if that's what we are doing. And I think we're taking a moment really to consider what he's actually done in isolation tonight for a start, because he did play the best of the rest, who's 10 years his junior and who's in his prime, Taylor Fritz. He was never going to have a better chance, certainly up until now, to get that win. He started badly, really, Fritz. He didn't get going.
He came out with his headband upside down.
I mean, that's a bad sign, isn't it? That's
yeah.
Ons Jabeur playing on the Wimbledon centre court in practice in
and it
all
stayed
black.
that way for 2 sets.
Yeah, imagine the moment when he went back to the bathroom after the second set and
you don't
looked
need
in
that,
the mirror and realised.
It's like you realise your flies are undone. And you just think, oh, maybe it was you go back and think, well, how long's this been like this for? Why has nobody said anything?
I was going to say that at least when the flies are undone, you can kind of try to convince yourself that nobody's seen it. But when you've got your boss headband
or if you
on
had
upside down in front of millions.
If you had a headband on that didn't have a big word written on it.
Exactly, you might not notice.
Yeah, nightmare.
But the thing is, he had so many break points, Taylor Fritz. Those first 3 games of the service games of the second set, I think, he had 11 break points, and he was just one after another reeling these things off, and just, as you said, Djokovic just playing those big points perfectly, just hitting a line, really taking it out of his hands. And Fritz started to play some good stuff as the match went on. He locked in. He's a good baseliner. He wasn't too far away from making it the physical contest that I think was his best chance of winning, as you pointed out earlier, because he doesn't have quite the game to outplay Djokovic, and he certainly wasn't getting enough first serves in at the end. He wasn't getting those free points. Usually you see him just sort of roll through service games quite easily. And I guess the tightness of playing Djokovic with all those defeats, 10 defeats before today and 11 now, there were some really good conversations between ESPN's commentators and Michael Russell, his coach, one in each set. And they laid bare, I think, how stressed Fritz must be, because whatever they'd come up with as a game plan, really, and what they wanted Fritz to do performance-wise, he was just unable to do it from the first ball.
And I think they also potentially exposed, and maybe it was just Michael Russell, in the heat of the match, maybe not wanting to declare the game plan really obviously, or maybe not able to with the nerves of the match, but it did seem a little bit confused, didn't it, in terms of, did he want him to play really aggressively? Did he want him to hang in rallies? But I think that probably does speak to the problem for Fritz. There's not an obvious pattern for him to play Novak Djokovic. I think it's make it physical, especially this stage of their careers. But kind of to do that, are you sort of saying that you're not trying to take the racket out of Djokovic's hand? And then if you do that, that's potentially dangerous, because Djokovic has still got the level to rip it from you. Are you just going to go after every ball? It's not fully Taylor Fritz's game, is it? He does like to trade and hang in rallies. So I think that just speaks to the matchup problem he's got. I know he likes to say it's not 11-0. It is 11-0. It's a massive, massive head-to-head matchup issue he's got. And I think it was exposed a little bit tonight. And then, as we said, came down to those big moments. And the other one I would point out would be the end of the second set, when he got the break back. He fought so hard for it, got it back to 5-all, and then he played a really poor service game. 2 double faults, couple of errors, and that you just can't. You just can't do that against Novak Djokovic.
Did desert him when he most needed it tonight, which you just can't afford to give anything away like that against Novak Djokovic at whatever age. And look, as extraordinary as reaching this semi-final is, and as well as he played tonight, and there were periods of this match where we were making all sorts of noises at the TV, he really did play well. You said, Matt, shortly after the last ball, I don't think we learned anything new, really, about either of them. Our physical doubts about Novak Djokovic remain. He was really gassed there at the end. If it had gone to a fifth set, he could have been on the ropes big time. And in terms of taking on Alcaraz, and then probably having to take on Sinner afterwards, if he by some miracle makes it through Alcaraz. And I do believe no matter how he plays, he's relying on Alcaraz not being as good as he's been this tournament. I think, to be honest, I think even Sinner is. And look, there's a good chance he's not, but what we've seen so far from Alcaraz this tournament is pretty much the best tennis I've ever seen. So I just, as awestruck as I am by what I've seen Djokovic do tonight, it doesn't really change how I feel about his likelihood to win this tournament, or even really the next match. That semi-final ceiling is still so firmly in place. For me, anyway. I don't know how you two feel about that.
No, I do feel similarly to you. In the past, I've felt more bullish about Djokovic at the French and at Wimbledon. He didn't actually win those matches. He didn't come close to beating Sinner the second time. I felt he wasn't far away the first time in the French Open. But it's not his level that's the issue. I mean, the ball was springing off his racket today, which is what I look for with Djokovic. The fact that he's able to go toe-to-toe with a guy as good from the baseline as Fritz and take it away from him the way he does. I mean, the one lapse was in the third set, and he got into it with the crowd, and the crowd gave him all sorts, and it's pretty unpleasant in that situation, and I think he kind of handed that set away by the end and thought, okay, well, I'll rebound. And you notice the moment he was in the fourth, suddenly he locked into the deadline of, I don't want to go 5 the way you were talking about, Catherine. I don't want to deplete the reserves anymore. I'm going to win it right here, and he managed to do that. And the tennis to me was there for that. It's just that the tennis he needs to beat Alcaraz, if Alcaraz is good, needs to be Olympic final level over the best of 5. Because otherwise you're relying on Alcaraz having a bit of a meltdown like he did at the Australian Open, or just coming out and really not being himself. You know, maybe the serve's not working. Maybe serve by Alcaraz is not with us in a couple of days' time.
Or maybe Djokovic gets in his head.
Yeah, these are all possibilities, absolutely. But from what I've seen from Alcaraz, he gives me a sense of confidence that his best self will be on display for the remainder of this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think we may even have called a Wimbledon podcast, is this the end for Novak Djokovic as a Grand Slam winning force? You know, I think maybe it was a puncture title than that, but kind of, you know what I'm getting at here. And here we are at the very next Grand Slam. We're presented with this situation again where he's most likely going to have to go through both of them. And therefore, we've just seen so much over the last couple of years over best of 5 for me to think that this is not an impossible task for him, but a very, very unlikely one to have to go through both of them. But this way round, Alcaraz in the semis first. He's got 2 days of rest now. You know, we know he's going to play the first semi-final on the Friday, so it's going to be day session. I think that's to his disadvantage, but I think it's to his advantage that he's got a couple of days off here. He should be fresh going into it, certainly fresher than he was, you know, at the other slams this year when he played these big matches. And he does have the record against Alcaraz. You know, I said, God, Alcaraz and Sinner have just shown they're so much further ahead than everyone, and Djokovic can't play like he can against Fritz, against them. And you pointed out, David, that isn't actually true against Alcaraz. You know, he's got a winning head-to-head record against him. As I said in part 1, he's never lost to him on a hard court. He's beaten him at a slam this year. Like, it's a different case with Alcaraz than it is with Sinner, I think, for Djokovic, match-up-wise. I think the relentlessness of Sinner,
the lack of chinks in the armour.
Right, completely unflappable. The ball speed that he's got off both wings. It's just a problem for Djokovic now that he's shown time and time again. The thing is, Alcaraz has been that guy, hasn't he? Unflappable, you know, big speed off both wings. He's been a better version of himself. And if that Alcaraz comes out, I don't see how Djokovic beats him over 5. And, you know, I know we talk a lot about the Australian Open. The first set, when Alcaraz did have his head together, he totally outplayed Djokovic in that match. Obviously, things flipped. Djokovic is going to have to, get in his head, I think. I think
get
that's
Andy
his
Murray
best
back.
Chance.
Isn't it wild to think Andy Murray was there?
Yeah, that was
physically on the court.
His best moment.
He was his first hug afterwards.
The more I think about it, you know, the more I think we know Alcaraz is a look at the draw guy, study the draw guy. The more I think Alcaraz has spent 5 matches practicing for playing Novak Djokovic. Practicing being focused and composed and concentrated throughout a match and not having dips, so that when he comes to face Djokovic in the semi-final, he's in that groove.
Yeah, I'd even go one stage further. I think he's been practicing to play Jannik Sinner in terms of thinking that that's the guy that beat me.
But he doesn't.
Most recently.
I agree but in a slightly different way. He doesn't have the focus issues, or he hasn't in the past had any focus issues really against Sinner. But he has. I don't think Sinner's in his head. I just think they are pretty much equally good tennis players that can beat one another. Djokovic has been in his head, and he wants to get him out.
It is a massive match in that regard, isn't it? Because, and it's 3 matches really, because I'd include Cincinnati in it as well, because Alcaraz had just thrashed him he'd beaten him in the Wimbledon final, not thrashed him. That was the second one, wasn't it? But he'd beaten him in that Wimbledon final, and he felt like he was beating him again in the Cincinnati final, and Djokovic turned that around, and that was what catapulted him to the US Open title a few weeks later. Then you have the US the Olympic final off the back of the thrashing at Wimbledon, and it really did rock Alcaraz to his foundations. And then maybe the Australian Open one was even more of a weird head mess for Alcaraz. And actually, since then, that's when he's come out and played his consistent tennis, isn't it? So he's remodeled a lot of his approach, and we've talked about that pride that he's got in the consistency. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's I just feel like this is the one. This is the one he's been waiting for. Hardcourt US Open. He feels different. He's got his short hair. He's ready to go. But
it's all going to come back to the hair, isn't
it? I'm big on the hair. I've been big on the hair.
It's amazing how won over pretty much everyone is by the hair, given the reactions when it first happened, sort of all of 8 days ago.
And I would add that if Djokovic was somehow to beat him, I think Alcaraz would take that really hard now, because
he'd have no hair and no US Open title. It'd all be for nothing.
But I don't see that happening. I think all things being equal, i.e. physical fitness, etc., I'd be surprised if Alcaraz doesn't win.
Okay, well, we've got another 48 hours to look ahead to it, build up to it, get excited about it. That is it for part 2. We will be back in part 3 to look ahead to tomorrow, more quarterfinal action. Welcome back to part 3 of tonight's tennis podcast. Let's have a look at what we have tomorrow, Wednesday, September 3rd at Flushing Meadows US Open, a big day for Matt Roberts. We start.
Why is that?
At 11:30 a.m. on the Arthur Ashe Stadium with a little appetizer. Alex de Minaur against Felix Auger-Aliassime. What's going to happen there?
What an opportunity for these two. That's what I love about it, first of all. In the case of Alex de Minaur, you've got a guy who's always there, who's always pushing to try to get into the Grand Slam semi-final stage, and so often runs into Jannik Sinner or somebody else. And here he's got not Jannik Sinner, a very, very good player in Felix Auger-Aliassime, but one who, he'll be feeling confident about. Not that he hasn't lost to him before. He's lost 2 out of the 3 of their meetings, but more recently, de Minaur has had the better of the 2 careers for the last couple of years, and he feels like he's a better player. It's a bit like Taylor Fritz tonight, thinking like he's made strides, and de Minaur is going to come bouncing out onto that court, and yet Auger-Aliassime has just found himself again and unlocked something, and beaten Zverev and beaten Rublev. These are massive wins for him. Land of opportunity for these 2 guys, and I love that, and it makes me really look forward to it. But I think I favour Auger-Aliassime and his weight of shot.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm leaning Auger-Aliassime as well. I think de Minaur, so reliable. I think he'll show up. But I think, I know he's been having good results this summer, de Minaur. I'm not actually convinced he's quite at his best. And I think Auger-Aliassime, this is a really rich vein of form he's in, and looking at their head-to-head, there's been a couple of times where Auger-Aliassime has just stamped his authority on the match. One in Cincinnati, the Davis Cup match that they played. I think there's a chance that happens again, and he takes over with his forehand. He's got the greater weight of shot. That's my feeling. If Auger-Aliassime can keep up the level he's had in the last couple, I think he'll come through this. But big opportunity for both, and that can do funny things to a match. But that's my hunch.
Now then, what's next after Auger-Aliassime de Minaur on Arthur? Here it is. It's a repeat of the Wimbledon final. Iga Swiatek against Amanda Anisimova. What's going to happen? No, in fact, what percentage chance do you give Anisimova of getting the win here?
30? 35? Like, I genuinely think she's got a shot here. It was interesting. I was thinking about what you said earlier, and Swiatek having played everything since all summer. She's played everything, and I didn't detect it in the last match against Alexandrova. I thought she was really good, but there have been little times this tournament where I thought, is she a bit tired here, Swiatek? Is there an accumulation? She's not been utterly convincing this tournament, and I do think Anisimova's got a game that can hurt her. Not fully, because I do think the movement, while much improved for Anisimova, is an issue in this matchup with Swiatek's width on her shots. But to me, it's so much about, and this is not it's not a clever take. It's just so much about, can Anisimova settle? Can she get a game on the board? Can she eradicate the memory of the Wimbledon final? And look, so much of that work probably happens before you get on the court. I really hope that there's been a big mindset discussion in the team in the last few days about what it's going to be like to face Iga Swiatek again. And if she can be herself out there, I'd give her maybe more than a 30% chance. I would make Swiatek the favourite, but I'd give her maybe more of a 30% chance. I think factored into my thinking is that this is going to be a lot for her. That was a really chastening experience in the Wimbledon final against a brilliant player. And so, yeah, look, I think Swiatek will probably win, but it's going to be, I'm hopeful it's going to be very, very different to Wimbledon. Do
you think the crowd will be tennis literate enough do you think they'll do big applause when she wins her first game?
I don't know if I want them to.
I think a few of them might.
Yeah,
I think there might be a bit of a...
Okay.
Just prepare yourself for that. Or maybe there'll be too much honey juice happening.
What do you two think? I feel like I'm much more interested in your takes on this than mine.
Well, I think she'll get a game. Last time I said that I feared a 50-minute final. I think it'll be more than an hour and 50.
Okay, think a battle.
I think it'll be a battle, and I think that Swiatek will come through, but I think she'll be really pushed, and I think the wall that you've kind of touched on there is coming, but it'll come in the next round.
Oh, I see what you've done there.
I see what he's done there as well.
So actually, you're the only person, Catherine, who's got a fully
objective
rational take, so...
I believe in my take.
I think 35% sounds about right. I wish I'd seen more of the Alexandrova match to really understand why that was quite as one-sided as it was. But yeah, I mean, I said at the beginning of this tournament, right? It was when we were talking about Yannick Sinner and in the context of his lovely 3 months off making classical music or making videos for classical music, that, it would be madness. Watching him makes it feel like it's madness to pick somebody that has just been on the grind all year for this particular tournament. And nobody's been on the grind more than Iga Swiatek. I really, really do believe this will be properly competitive. And I think of course, Iga Świątek is most likely to win it, but 30-35% sounds about right to me. And I really, really don't see a blowout. I would actually be quite shocked if it was a blowout. Obviously not love and love. No, I'm not sure anyone's expecting that. But even sort of 2-3 or something, I'd be pretty surprised by that, I think.
I think Anisimova can hurt Świątek more on the return than she could at Wimbledon, even just because of the surface. I think it sits up more for her backhand return to hurt
And Anisimova's been serving better this tournament than she did at Wimbledon.
Yeah, her first serve percentage is up, her double faults are down, her aces are up. It's been a really good serving tournament, and yeah, it's going to be key again.
Night session tomorrow starts with Karolina Muchova against Naomi Osaka. I think we probably all are seeing an Osaka win here. I think I might be any which way, but I just struggle to see a scenario where Muchova is sort of in enough of one solid piece to be competitive here, I'm afraid, because otherwise it would be just the most delicious match to look forward to. But I have anxiety looking at that match on the schedule. I'm worried about it. If you told me a Czech was going to withdraw ahead of a quarterfinal, Muchova would have been my go-to.
Well, it was extraordinary that she won against Noskova with the treatment on court that she was getting to her lower back, because that isn't something you easily just overcome, and yet she managed to win that match, and therefore I wouldn't put anything past her. She's beaten Osaka before at the US Open a year ago. I think Osaka's a little bit in awe of her skill set. They practiced together on the eve of the tournament, and she can't believe what she can do, I think, Osaka, because Osaka's more straight up and down, in her approach to hitting tennis balls. But I just feel like she's exactly where she needs to be. She doesn't seem to have these aches and pains, and yeah, I would be surprised if that doesn't take some sort of factor in the match.
Second on Ash in the night session is Jannik Sinner against Lorenzo Musetti. If you told me there's going to be a blowout tomorrow, this is where I'd be looking. I'd love to be wrong, but I'm worried about this one as well for different reasons.
I'm worried about it too, and I really hope that those worries prove not to be valid in the end. Because I'd love to see Musetti give a good account of himself, because he's such a great watch, and the crowd would love him. They would love to see his extravagant shot making and his expressive reactions and all the stuff he brings to the table. But the problem is he needs a bit of time to do those things, and Sinner doesn't give you that. He's just on you. So my concern is that he gets rushed and he can't cope.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I think Sinner will just strangle him from the baseline with his weight of shot and his ability to take the ball early, and maybe on another surface, Musetti's hands and slice and just a bit more time, for example, on the clay might allow him to get his forehand into play a bit more. I just think on this surface, I think it's tough to see Musetti winning a set.
Okay, big hype job for the night session. Then one injured player and one player that's gonna get his clock cleaned. We're excited.
It'll be nice. It'll be nice.
Yeah,
it'll be a lovely watch.
It'll be great.
Yes.
Great in the knock-up.
Yeah, yeah. Do tune in for the knock-up. We'll be back with a podcast, of course, at the end of it. Just wrapping up today. Oh, my goodness, it's the return of Jagger and Gucci. Oh, wow. Today's mascots are Jagger and Gucci, owned by Laura. Laura says, you may remember Jagger and Gucci. Do I, Laura? They are 3-time pet mascots, Bernedoodle sisters, owned by Laura's sister Amy and niece Sophia, but now also live with me and their Auntie Deb in our new shared home in Fairfield, Connecticut. What a lovely, familial canine commune type situation this sounds like. Room for an extra one. As you can see, says Laura in the photo, these sweet girls graduated this year from a month-long training programme with flying colours. Oh, my goodness. They enjoyed treats, long walks and guarding us from the various water birds that live in the marshlands behind our house. They are also big tennis fans and join their Aunt Laura in watching matches whenever they can. They especially enjoyed fangirling over favourite players Carlos Alcaraz and Coco Gauff during the French Open finals. They are posing in this photo with their degree certificates from the last day of boot camp. I am totally speechless, which, Laura, does not make good podcasting, but welcome back, Jagger and Gucci, Hall of Famers, I would say. Lovely faces.
I love the idea that we've got a tennis podcast pet Hall of Fame.
Just came up with it, and I'm now wondering why haven't I been doing that all along?
Because they're all in it.
You're going to have to work out some criteria.
Creating the shortlist would be too traumatic. Jagger and Gucci, Laura, thank you. Thank you. And hello to our mascots. Hello, Phoebe. Hello, Maisie. Hello, Roger. Hello to our top folks and executive producers, Greg, Chris and Jeff. Let's have some shout-outs, Matt.
We have Kim Ferguson from Glasgow.
Hi, Kim.
Hello, Kim. Like Kim Sears.
Like Kim Kleisters. Remember how I said Adam Hogg instead of Adam Walton last night for the Adams?
Yeah, we forgot a sensation.
Yeah. I mean, both good Adams, but I probably should have come up with the current ATP professional. But there we are. Anyway, Kim!
Kim has completed 3/4 of the Fan Slam and just has the US Open to
Wow, good work.
See you
Kim.
next year, Kim. See you in New York. Any tennis Fergusons? None that I can think of, actually. I'm sure there is. We're going to get an email from Nick Imerson with a tennis
I hope
Ferguson.
so.
Well, Nick definitely asked.
He emailed us about Adam Walton.
He pointed
Yeah.
out Adam, yeah. I think we had another couple there as well.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
We've also got Catherine Willerton
Hello, Catherine.
Hi,
I think
Catherine.
I recognise that name.
Yes, me too.
from Birkdale, Merseyside.
Yes. Hello, Catherine.
Same church, same pew.
Oh,
Wowza.
Lovely.
And
What a gal.
Catherine has been a listener to the pod from about 2 years into the pod.
Wow, good work.
Catherine said, I was a Sampras fan like David,
Oh,
but
now we're talking.
Nadal is my all-time fave.
And he'll do too.
Well, you know how to win over me and David, Catherine.
Have a good name.
Great
and support
name.
Pete Sampras.
Good preferences. Thank you very much for your continued support, Catherine.
And lastly, we have Ash Jameson,
Hello, Ash.
Right, Ash.
who is having a shout-out for the 3rd year in a row.
Wow. Like
And I
that.
reckon for the previous 2 years we said Ash Barty.
I dare say.
And I've got sad.
Yes. So Vicky's actually done some
Oh,
research for us and come up.
She's preempted.
Yeah.
she's preempted my pathetic predictability. Thank you, Vicky.
And come up with Ashley Harkle Road.
I remember Ashley
yes.
Harkle very well indeed.
Didn't she do a Playboy cover?
I wasn't going to bring that up, but yes, she did, and she was quite a good player.
Vicky's got stats. a career high singles ranking of 39. Wins over Daniela Hantakova, Caroline Wozniacki and Dinara Safina.
I remember the one over Daniela Hantakova.
And me being the great feminist I am brought up her Playboy cover. That's great.
Also, all part of a journey.
All part of the Ashley Harkle Road journey.
Yes, Vicky writes, her Wikipedia entry is actually quite the read.
There's also Ashley Cooper.
Oh, very good.
Yes, good.
Yeah. Thanks, David. I got a real look of approval there from
Well,
David.
I was trying to think, who's that? And then I was like, oh, yes.
Ash. Let's hope that Ash is short for Ashley.
It is.
Right, okay, great. Great, we haven't overstepped. Ash, thank you ever so much. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Ash. Thank you,
You've forgotten your own name.
Catherine. Oh, my God.
It's quite late, folks.
Thank you all ever so much. If you'd like to become a friend of the Tennis Podcast, the link, as always, is in our show notes. Thank you for listening. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. We'll, of course, be back tomorrow. Enjoy the tennis. We'll speak to you then.